Good afternoon and welcome to Pawsitive Partners, a show about training your dog and making the life you have with your furry friend a successful one so that it lasts a good long time.
Mm-hmm. And the dogs that were on the monitor there were dogs that are at the shelter where you volunteer.
Right. I took all those photos to help them get adopted quicker. These are all shelter dogs, and then as you can see, they're not bad looking.
Good looking dogs.
Yeah.
Love their eyes.
Yeah, and they're very adoptable. I think there's 2 or 3 on that intro that are still there.
Where's the shelter? That one?
That's Gallia County Canine Shelter.
Yeah.
It's near the hospital in that area.
Great. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So glad to give them. We're glad they got some publicity.
Yeah.
And if those dogs aren't there in another month or two, the dogs just like them will be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And part of our
so
desire,
far they've almost had 500 turnover through there this year.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And part of where our desire is mission, yes,
mm-hmm.
is to have dogs stay with their families, have their families enjoy that member and have that work for them. But if a dog ends up in a shelter, which happens, then when they're adopted, to be able to stay with their new families and have those families really enjoy those animals. And there's some problems that occur, and we know what some of those are, and there are some ways to address them. And we'll be looking at 2 areas here. We'll try to get to chewing if we can. The first is following up on the last show we did, which was house training. Mm-hmm. And there's a series of steps that you follow through that are successful, almost all the time. But if they're not, why isn't this working? So we'll go through some slides about what we'll be covering. I'll kind of talk us through that, and then you and I will discuss. Mm-hmm. I'm Tom Heiskell. I'm a PhD clinical psychologist, now retired, and cross-trained to educate people with their animals. Same issues, just with a leash attached, I guess, more or less.
Yeah. And
learning is learning.
Right, you're just like other people say, you're training people.
Yeah.
And rehabilitating the animals.
Both, right. It takes both together.
Right.
And
you just can't come in and fix the dog without telling the people how to do that.
It's a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So if we can start on the slides. Okay, so house training problems, why isn't this working? Well, first see if you're actually implementing the plan step by step, because as you were saying earlier, it takes time, it takes management to establish these habits.
I'd say a couple months at least.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. yeah, and some dogs quicker, some dogs takes a little longer, and we'll talk about why it might take longer for mm-hmm. some dogs. So one, are you keeping track of accidents? Where and when they happen? That'll tip you off to where to change things for success. Are you asking the dog to wait too long? Well, it varies by dogs, but a three-month-old dog, maybe 3 hours. An adult dog, 8 hours is a good long time. So, mm-hmm. Okay, are you offering the dog too big an area to explore? For them, where their bathroom area is someplace other than where they lie down.
Right. That's why crate training works.
That's right. And so if they are house trained in a particular room, and you say, "Good, we're golden. Now let's let them out in these other 2 rooms at some time." That's not necessarily their home area for them. Mm-hmm. That's like, oh, now we're someplace new, and this can be a potty area. So you introduce one area at a time and get them to be successful at cueing you when you have to go outside. Mm-hmm. And obviously in all this, you're letting the dog out more often than they need to go, right, rather than the opposite. If you have to make a decision, it's like, let's let them out a little more often rather than a little less often and build up from there.
Because it's when you're house training, it's more being proactive than reactive.
Right.
You want to get ahead of them and not react to them.
Yeah. So next slide. Thank you.
There we go.
If your house training plan seems to be on track, get a hold of your veterinarian, check for medical problems. Now there's a list there, so you can go over that. You can relook at this and take a screenshot and that kind of stuff. And there are a variety of medical problems or health issues that can cause problems with voiding in the house. So some of them urinary tract infection, and some of us know how that feels. And diabetes, medications, worms, loss of sphincter tone after spaying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I know of two, I think there's a Bernese Mountain Dog, and I think there's another dog, it's a smaller one, that have problems just dribbling because they have neurological issues.
Oh.
And the bigger dog, you know, a Bernese Mountain Dog is 120 pounds, and
Wow, yeah.
they have an accident, you know
Yeah,
it.
you know it.
And what they are doing is they have a belly band with some sort of an absorbent pad. It's a boy dog, so it's maybe a little bit easier for them.
Yeah.
So, or
It's there's for girl dogs, there's a kind of a diaper you can
Right.
buy, you know, here or there. Yeah. Yeah.
so don't write them off.
Yeah, right. Right.
They may
right.
take a little bit more work, but they're level just the same.
Great. Now, we'll talk a little later on about emotional reactions that can cause urination or defecation in the house, and so that's the next slide. And we'll talk about that, you know, as we go along here. You can come back and look at that at the beginning. And the next slide is dogs who probably need more than an average level of help.
And these are generally dogs that are confined to a space, like a shelter dog, and the ones that come from pet stores that they've gotten used to going in their sleeping space almost.
Right. Yeah. And that's that slide there. So what happens with shelter dogs? They don't have an outside area. It's just can't be arranged, and so they have to go in their living area, close to their sleeping area. Like you say, puppies in pet stores. It's just a reality of the size of the space that's available. They have to go where they.
It's a necessity. It's not their fault.
It's just that's their life.
Their conditioning.
Their conditioning. Rescued or adopted dogs, they might have never learned house training habits. When you get a rescued or adopted dog, start with them as if they haven't been house trained, and just begin with that sort of process, and that way you're going to get some success going instead of being reactive.
Right. And when you do correction, if you have to like yell at them or show that you don't like it, make sure you do it right as they're doing it and not like 10 minutes afterwards. They don't know that.
And in terms of what do you do when you catch them right in the middle? What you want to do is interrupt. Hey, or
Right.
No. And then, something like that. But the point is you're interrupting to where they give you attention, and then you say outside, and then you get them outside, and then once you're outside you reward them and then you look at managing and monitoring, so you're proactive the next time, and where there was an accident and so forth, then you've got the dog actually moving outside before that happens.
Right. You want to
next time
show
with
them
the time actor.
Right. You want to show them where their successes are.
Yeah. Yeah, and punishment, when you think about it, you actually don't want to create fear in the dog about
That
going.
could make it worse.
That could make it worse, because what they'll learn is, when they void inside the house, mom or dad or whoever gets really angry, and so the dogs being dogs, how they're going to think about it is, I'm going to find a place to go where mom or dad doesn't see me.
Right.
And then you end up with something, around the corner, this, that, and the other. So you say something to interrupt rather than to frighten or per se punish. Right. We'll talk about punishment at some time or another. And punishment is one of those, to administer punishment, well, I'm a positive trainer, to use aversive consequences in terms of painful, punishing consequences, that takes a very, very high level of training. And most of us do well to do training that is reward focused. And when there's a problem, we want to focus on being proactive and managing. That works. Okay, another one is sometimes adolescent dogs, they just seem to forget. And so when that happens, because hormones get going and all that sort of stuff, so you just start them over again, and that works. Small dogs, sometimes you don't notice that they've piddled.
Right.
You know, they make a little quick squat or something like that, or they snuck around behind some place and you don't know, so they might be practicing going inside, and you just don't realize that they're behind the couch. You just don't realize they've done it because they're small.
I blocked off all those access areas to getting behind the couch.
Yeah, that's thinking.
Put a boxer
thinking
there.
ahead. Oh yeah.
And then, you know, if you don't see them, either you'll be like coming around the corner and it's like, hey, why is my sock wet?
Yeah.
Or why is this room smelling different?
Yeah, right.
Because you haven't cleaned it up for a while.
Yeah, right. And so you do want to, you know, this kind of goes back to last time, but you do want to use enzymatic cleaners, which actually break down the products. I mean, you wash it off, you soak it up, and then an enzyme cleaner breaks down the product so it doesn't smell like urine anymore.
Right. Because if you know a male dog, they go up to the poles or different places where other dogs have peed, and then they pee there too.
Right.
So the same thing works in your house. If somebody else has peed there, even a puppy that you've had a couple years ago,
that's a sign.
If they scent that on the carpet, that's a place to go.
That is. Yeah. Bob was here, or whatever.
Right.
Okay. Then probably the most we'll talk about today is combined training. Most of us have to be at work, and so it would be ideal if we could be at home and there to manage and train all day long, you know, for 2 weeks in a row. Well, not usually. So usually we're having to do our training once we get home from work or on weekends, but the dog or puppy is going to be there during the day. Now, it's ideal if we can get someone that we trust come into our house and let the dog out, you know, 2 or 3 times and so forth. It's great when we can, but, you know, this is the real world. So we'll talk about how do you do a combination of indoor training and outdoor training when that's necessary.
And Christmas is coming up, and, you know, if you're going to give a pet, you should, you know, make this a wise decision, not an impulse buy. But if you're going to give a pet for Christmas, if you have 2 or 3 weeks off, if you're lucky enough to be one of those people, why don't you give it to them early where you have that amount of time to do this training and get ahead of it and not do it at the end of your vacation and now you have to go back to work.
Yeah. So when you this is a deal where multitasking isn't so easy. So if you can combine it, and when you've got time off, even a week, then, you know, or even several days, that's puts you ahead. If we can look at the last slide, that's a list of resource books. Okay, and again, you can come back and do a screenshot. These are all. This isn't a definitive list. But these are all books that will give you some good thoughts. So you can also go to my website once I get that up and going at Pawsitive Experiences Training. But that's a future project. So here's some books. All right. Well, let's go back to you and I talking about some things that can look like house training problems. And they're really not. The first of those is submissive urination. This is the little dog that's a very shy.
A lot of them, there are certain breeds that are more predisposed to it. The ones I know would be like a dachshund.
Okay.
They'll flip on their back and then it goes everywhere.
Little fountain,
Right, and their tail throws it everywhere.
And so with those dogs, what you want them to do is you want to teach them to greet you in a low-key, calm way. And
it's really fun to come in the door and go, yay, we're home, and get everybody excited. But if you have one of those dogs, just come in the door and ignore them.
Right, yeah.
Just sneak in the house. Or sneak, but, you know, just come in the door. Hi, how you doing? And just let's open the door. And
right, let's go
just
out.
Keep it all calm until they've done their
Yeah.
business outside, then you can maybe have a little happy time.
And if you're a guy, what you want to do is you want to do kind of bend down and get sort of at a lower level rather than being over top of the dog like, hey, how you doing? You know, Joe, you know, the dog's going to go, all right, you're big, I'm scared, I'm on my back, now I'm submissively peeing.
And that's, you come in, you would get down and then let them come to you.
Yeah. Now, another version of that is, I'm so excited to see you. And the same thing goes here.
And I see that in my puppy right now.
Yeah. I'm so excited to see you, I just can't hold it. You know, they're not submissive, they're not feeling intimidated. It's just like greeting you and bouncing around and holding my bladder. Just pick one.
Yeah, I can't do all those things
Can't
all
do
at
all
once.
those things all at once, right? Okay.
So that's where we come home, fairly calm, open the door, let her out, let her do her business, and then we'll go, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
We'll do the whole
After
licking
that.
in the face thing.
All that stuff. Keep it low key, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Marking. So you were talking about dogs that, you know,
Well,
go
the
to
boy
some area, the
dogs.
boy dogs especially. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have a male neutered or unneutered, but he's still kind of, even if he's unneutered, he still kind of has some memory, some sense of what it's all about, and there's a female in heat in the neighborhood, your boy dog might start marking. If there's a new dog in the air, you know, if there's some dogs outside or a new addition to your family, a child, another dog, another cat, whatever, you know, your new
All
parrot.
mine have been neutered, and every time they see something that's upright, they're smelling it and marking it.
Yeah.
They don't care. It's like, there's a tree. We
Yeah.
gotta go see who's been there.
Right, yeah, they
Leave
read,
our calling card.
they read the P-mail, not the email. Yeah.
Right, and they get upset, you know, all the kids and stuff wait in our front yard for the bus, and there's dogs and stuff. It's like, and it's like, hey, you're peeing on my mailbox. Daggone it.
Yeah, right.
So,
Well,
so when we come home, it's
I
like,
have a
who was
suggestion.
that?
Don't. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. So with marking, what you do is you manage. So if you've got a dog that is in the habit of marking some things, and put them on a leash tether with you. Use a something to barrier off where they might be marking, and if they're in that area.
No, you're talking indoors.
Indoors.
Right.
Right.
Outdoor.
Outdoors. Right. Yeah.
don't care.
That's all good. So what you want to do is manage, get them away from things where that they would mark, have them on a tether with you, and then if they start marking, just go, you know, nope, you know, and then take them outside or just confine them someplace. No, dogs can also urinate or defecate inside if there's something frightening that happens inside, literally scares something out of them, or if they're frightened of going outside.
Do you see that with like thunderstorms?
I suppose you
not so
could.
much.
I don't know. I wish I could tell you. I don't
No,
know. It makes sense.
I know my dogs.
Really, if they're terrified, I suppose, yeah.
At this time, you know, there's a lot of hunters in the woods, and
Yeah.
they don't like gunfire.
Yeah.
So they'll just run inside. They don't have that problem, but that could be one thing.
On the point of being really frightened, separation panic, dogs like people can get separation anxiety disorder, and when that's severe, a dog is really, really panicked, desperate, and so they will lose bowel control, they'll lose bladder control, their paws will be sweating, they will be desperately trying to get out of whatever enclosure that they're in. They might be chewing at the door. So if you get a video, if you're not sure what's going on, and you have a camera you can set up your camera and watch what's going on and when they're pottying, and you can get an idea of what's happening. They're
And
frustrated.
if you don't have a camera, I'm sure you have like an old phone that does some video.
Yeah.
You know, so plug it in and get a good shot. Press it, record, and
Right.
see what happens.
Leave the charger plugged in, and
Right.
that way you don't have to worry about the old battery.
Right.
Yeah. And then frustration elimination, that's kind of maybe a variation of separation anxiety, but this is why did the dog pee on my shirt, my shoes, this, that, and the other. Usually happens with a dog that's frustrated about being there by themselves or frustrated about something else.
I kind of see that more in cats.
Okay.
I don't like
Yeah,
you. and
yeah, right.
I'm going to pee on your pillow.
Something like that. Anyway, if you get a video and you see that the dog isn't really distressed, you know, they're not looking panicky, they're not panting, they're not howling, they're not whining, they're not sounding forlorn, they're not desperately pacing back and forth, their paws aren't sweaty, that sort of stuff. Give them something to do, which will come into kind of how do you keep them occupied when you're away, and then also manage with a crate or a smaller area. Okay, how are we doing? We need to.
We're about 7.5 minutes.
We are not going to get to chewing today. So, if we can go over here to this pin, the shot of the pin. If you have to be away, and you can have your dog crated, or you can have your dog in a pen. This is an exercise pen for children or puppies. Take your pick. And you can adjust the size by taking out sections or adding in sections. What you want is an area where the dog is sleeping in one area, and then they have something in which they potty. If you're going to use a plastic thing like this for potting, you put some material down here and put some urine scent in there to give them the idea that's a target. You would reward them for pottying in there to give them the idea. Your sleeping and resting area is going to be just big enough for them to sleep, lie down, turn around. If they've got an open area that is away from where they sleep, that's going to be fair game for them to potty in. So you adjust your size. Now, as they get used to using this, little thing here or something like it as a target, you can buy things that are made as a potty box. You can buy some systems that are made for that as well. Anyway, once they get used to that, then you can start expanding the area out, and so long as they manage to keep going in here, then that's good. With male dogs, you obviously want something with a side on it because they're going to lift their leg and you don't want them to overshoot.
The problem I've seen with male dogs, they'll get up next to the side and pee right outside.
Oh, they'll pee
the bar.
outside, so yeah. So, you do need to train for going in here. And again, it takes some patience. You have to teach them what you want and reward them for what they're doing that's successful. Okay, so when you come home, if you want them to always to have the option to potty in here, even when you're home, then leave it out. If you don't, then you want this to be closed off. And not available to the dog, and then you go through the normal house training kind of procedure. Okay, and as far as what you put in something like this, if you want them to get used to potting on grass, it's really great if you can put some grass or rocks or whatever you want to use in here. If you're going to use something like what you don't want them to potty on is something that resembles carpet. I mean, if you have them potty on carpet here, there's carpet all over the house, so it's you don't want to confuse them. Make it clear. If you have something like potty pads or something in here, and then you want to get them used to potting outside, so then when you take them outside, you take a potty pad, and that becomes their target outside, and then you just decrease the size of that potty pad outside so they get the idea, and then eventually they're getting used to going on grass.
And I praise them a lot when I come home and I see that they've been good and have held it inside the crate or something, then boy, you're a good boy.
Yeah. Talking with them helps. They don't understand English, but they understand feeling. So
tones and different things
and that kind of thing. So where are we? It looks like we're kind of at the end. Okay, so speaking of, this kind of relates to chewing. All right, these are when your dog has to be in a crate or whatever, and let's say your dog's chewing, you want them to have something to do. So these
you have to give them an alternative.
Give them an alternative, something to do all day. Or for the 2 or 3 hours they're there. This is a rope toy that's made pretty tough. This is kind of a hard plastic. To make this hard plastic attractive, you can soak these in like some sort of chicken broth, let that dry, and have several of those available. This helps if you're teething. Thank you. This is a Kong. It has a hole. You can stuff peanut butter or a combination of wet food and dry food in there. You can freeze it. If a dog's teething, then they get to bite on this. When you and here's another type of Kong, depending on what your dog likes, or smaller still.
Depending on dog size.
Dog size, or something with ribs on it. And when you stuff food in there, that gives them something to do. You can put part of their daily ration in there so that when you leave, for them it's feeding time, you know. And you'll have an idea if they're feeling okay about you being gone, because then they'll be able to eat. If you come back and they haven't eaten all day long, that is one uncomfortable dog. So that tips you off to another problem. But Kongs are great. Good for teething, good for keeping dogs busy.
The only thing I would caution, which this is not so bad, but there are some squeaky toys and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay, you're not around and you want them not to chew it up and eat it and swallow it.
So you want to, whatever toy you use, you want to watch them and see how they do with it, because you don't want them ingesting that or bones or something of that nature. And then
they clog up their internals. And
clog
you're
up their
off
internals
to the vet.
or get a perforated intestine.
So watch how they choose these things.
Yeah.
If they are chewing parts of it off
chunks
easily,
off, right.
That's not the right one for you.
Right. Yeah, it depends on the dog, so you get the right kind of chew toy for the dog. The bigger, the stronger the dog, the harder that the material needs to be.
Right. I think my guys could chew right through that sucker.
Yeah. Probably it'd be gone.
Is this something? Or?
No, that was just what I held that together with. But ask your vet. Okay, ask your vet.
Got a minute.
Okay, got a minute.
Yeah.
All right.
So hopefully these two shows about house training, house breaking, or however you want to put it, have been of good service, because that, I think, is one of the number one things that can ruin your relationship. Besides being aggressive, you know, peeing around the house or, you know, pooing or whatever, you have to get this right. So put in the time.
Yeah.
Don't neglect it. Don't get frustrated. Use all the techniques that we've explained here and confine them. Don't let them roam the house all day long, because that's a recipe for disaster.
Turning a 2-year-old loose.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
No.
That's a bad idea.
It is.
Okay, so hopefully next time we're going to talk about chewing and teething next month.
Well, or we might pick another, we'll kind of maybe come back to that a little bit and we'll pick another topic.
Okay, so we'll see you next month, the first Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Thanks for watching Pawsitive Partners.